This video is all about the top 5 pros and cons of living here in the city of Temecula, California. We're going to go over the good, we're going to go over the bad, and hopefully give you the right info to decide if this is the right area where you're going to want to live. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hey again, my name is Justin Short. I am a realtor and team leader for the Short Real Estate team here in Temecula, California and Murrieta, California. And this video is all about the top 5 pros and the 5 biggest cons of living here in the city of Temecula. I've lived here for over 20 years. I grew up out here. We're raising our family here. I think I can give you guys a really good perspective on what it's like to actually live here, you know, the good stuff and the bad stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get in all the info in just a second. But if you are liking videos like this and you want to know more about the city of Temecula or the surrounding cities and you're liking these videos, please do me a favor. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. So we have dozens and dozens of videos on our YouTube channel about the area, about the best neighborhoods, the worst neighborhoods, what you want to look for, pros and cons and cost of living and all that type of stuff. So if you're liking those videos, please do that. And then if you have any questions, if you guys are thinking about making a move out this way, would love to hear from you guys. You're going to see all my information at the end and below, but you can feel free, you can call, you can text, you can email me. I get people that reach out to us all the time. So myself and my team, we'd love to answer any questions you may have, or see if there's anything we can do to help you out with your search. But let's go ahead and we'll get into the video here. So again, we're going to talk about the top 5 pros and cons of living here in Temecula. We're going to start with the good stuff. And so just if you guys are not super familiar with the area, so we are in Southern California, right? We're in South Riverside County. We are just north of San Diego County, and we are very much so a bedroom community. So a lot of people live here because it's more affordable than a lot of the surrounding areas of California, right? So people live here and they commute out to San Diego, LA, Orange County, and you can live in a nice newer area, mostly newer suburb, right? And get a lot more for your money than what you can get out in especially San Diego or Orange County, right? So so that we're going to go over the pros. That kind of takes us right into the biggest pro. So pro number 1. So the number 1 driver and the number 1 most desirable part about living here is it's an affordable area for being in Southern California. So our average price point right now for the city of Temecula, the average house is about $750,000. But if you compare that to the surrounding areas, like surrounding counties, especially like San Diego and Orange County, the average price points are well over $1 million. So you can live out this way, be in a much more affordable area, and it's a newer area. So the homes and the communities really built anywhere from like the mid 90s to mid 2000s. So you can get a lot more for your money, right? So you tend to get some newer layouts, newer finishes, right? You don't have some of the older structure concerns that you may have buying a home that was built in 1960, right? Where you're worried about the roof and electrical and stuff like that. Not so much a concern out here. But that's really the biggest driver for people is, bottom line, Temecula is more expensive than other parts of Southern California. So pro number 2 is the school district. So Temecula Valley Unified School District is one of the top school districts in the nation and one of the top in the state of California as well. So they win all types of accolades. They have really, really great ratings across the board. The schools are 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, or 10 out of 10s. They have one of the top high schools in the country. It's like a nationally ranked high school is Great Oak High School, which is in South Temecula. That's a part of the district. And in general, it's just a really, really good public education system. So in contrast, right, if you compare to a lot of the other parts of Southern California and San Diego and Orange County that are a little more affordable, the school districts are not nearly as great, right? So that's a big draw for people, is you can be out here and be in a really good school district. Okay, and then the third biggest pro that I want to talk about is just the fact that the city of Temecula is consistently one of the safest cities in America. So each year, with the stats come out, and the city of Temecula has been ranked anywhere from the top 10, one of the top 10 safest cities in the country, the top 15, anywhere in the top 20, and I think every year over the last decade it's been somewhere in the top 100 safest cities in America. So with that being said, it's a very, very safe area to live. the Riverside County sheriffs do a really great job of keeping down the crime and making sure there's not a lot of transients coming through, and making sure the area is well taken care of, and keeping out crime and drugs and all that type of stuff. And that's a big draw, especially to a suburb like this in Southern California. Okay, and then the fourth biggest pro that I want to go over is just the fact that we are anywhere from a 45-minute to 1-hour drive to all the different cool stuff that Southern California is going to offer. So what that means is, where we're positioned in South Riverside County. We're right on the border of San Diego County. You're anywhere from a 45 to a 1-hour drive, 45-minute to a 1-hour drive to downtown San Diego if you want to go experience, the city life stuff and or go to the zoo, or Padre baseball games, or whatever it is you want to do down there. You're 45 minutes to a 1-hour drive out to the beach, to the beaches in San Diego. You're about an hour drive away to a lot of the beaches in Orange County. You're 45 minutes to a 1-hour drive to most parts of Orange County, including like Disneyland and a lot of the other cool day trip stuff that you can do out there. You're 45 minutes to a 1-hour drive. I'd be able to make it out to the desert if you go east towards, Palm Springs area and any of that type of stuff. And then you have a little bit longer drives, an hour and a half or so to most parts of LA, and an hour and a half to 2 hours to, the local mountain range, which is, Big Bear Mountain, and some of the surrounding mountains that are up there. So really what that means is, so you're in where we're at in Southern California, you're within really easy day trip driving distances to all those different cool things. So you're very central to that, and you can experience all the different cool stuff that Southern California offers. The fifth biggest pro is just the fact that we are a newer, well-kept suburb. So when you get to the city and you're driving around town, it's very clear to see that it's not like an old, dated area, right? Most everything is pretty well maintained. Most of the commercial buildings are really well maintained. Most of the houses are built relatively recently. So to give you perspective, like most homes here were built anywhere from like the mid-1990s, anywhere to like the 2010-ish or so. There's still some new construction that's even finishing up, so some that's even newer than that. But in general, it's not like an old area, right? So say if you go to some of the other parts of Southern California, San Diego and Orange County and LA, you might be looking at houses and buildings that were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And obviously those are totally different. They're different size-wise. They've been added on to over time. You might have some structural concerns. You might have concern with the roof and how long the roof's going to last, and electrical, and all other types of stuff that that you can become concerned with an older home. Well, that's really typically not the case out here. So because it's a newer area, you don't have to worry too much about that stuff. And it's a nice newer suburb, right? It's clean, it's well taken care of, and I think that shows when you drive through. Okay, so we went over the pros, went over the good stuff, and so the next thing I want to talk about is just the cons. So the 5 biggest cons about living here in Temecula. Again, full disclaimer, I've lived here a long time. I'm planning to raise my family here. I think it's a great area to live, right? But it's not going to be right for everybody. So we don't want to make sure we point out, some of the cons or some things that you want to consider to make sure it's the right area for you to live here. The number one biggest con, and things that I hear from people all the time, so the worst part about living here is the commute. So if you live here, most people live here and do not work here locally. So most people live here, commute to San Diego, LA, Orange County, so they're on the freeway, they make the drive, make the commute. And if you have to do that, if you're on the road 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half each way, it's gonna weigh on you, and eventually you're not gonna want to do that anymore. And it's really gonna eat up your quality of life and how much you're enjoying where you're gonna live, right? So I would say post-COVID, obviously so many more people now are working from home, so that really takes out the commute aspect. So because that's been a big thing that has helped this area grow, right? Because there's not a ton of jobs here locally, there's not a ton of big businesses. It's mostly a suburb kind of bedroom community. Again, most people live here, commute out, right? But if you no longer have to make that commute, or you only have to commute 1 or 2 days a week, it takes away the biggest pain point of living here. It makes this area a lot more desirable, right? But it's a sacrifice that a lot of people have to make and choose to make in order to live in a nicer, newer area. But that's definitely the number one complaint about people living here. The second biggest con about living here in Temecula is kind of the flip side to one of the other points that I mentioned, is although we are within a driving distance, day trip to all these different cool things that Southern California gives you, we are not right next to really anything. So again, we're kind of a separated suburb, right? The area's grown a lot. There's a lot of different things that the city itself offers, but a lot, like when I'm talking on the phone, a lot of people are thinking about making a move here, right? They are wanting, a lot of times people are wanting to like experience like beach life that Southern California gives you, right? Well, hey, we're like an hour from the beach, right? So you're not really gonna get that, right? So if you're an avid surfer and you want to be in the water, you know, for dawn patrol at 6 a.m. every day, you're probably not the right area to live in, right? Or if you wanted to be out in the desert and have kind of that lifestyle, right? Where you can drive there, yeah. We go out to the desert each year as a family and we do that whole thing, and that's cool, but on a daily basis, probably not the right area to be in, right? Or if you want to live in the city, right? There's really not, we're not like a true city as far as like, you know, high rises and what a downtown area would be in a big city. So that's something you got to know when you're moving here. You know, it's the suburbs, you're a little bit detached from everything, and you got to be willing to make those trips in order to have something that's a little bit more affordable out this way. And third biggest con about living here in Temecula is although we are affordable for Southern California, on a nationwide scale, we are pretty dang expensive. So right now, the latest stats that I've seen is the average price to buy a home throughout the United States is about $345,000 that's the last stat that I saw. So right now, if you take that as an average price point across the country, and the city of Temecula, the average price point is $700,000, right? So that's a huge jump. So we're like double or $750,000. So more than double the average price point compared to what the nationwide average is going to be. So I think a lot of people know that coming in, right? It is California. You're going to pay a little bit of a premium to be in California compared to a lot of other areas. But you got to know, like, if you are moving from, say, parts of Midwest where it's a lower price point, that's a huge cost of living adjustment, right? You got to justify, you know, buying a significantly more expensive home in a significantly more expensive state. So just something that you got to be okay with. If price-wise, if you do have a concern about that, a lot of people do live in some of the surrounding areas of Temecula. So there are a handful of cities that are close by that are going to be less expensive. So you can save anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000 really easily by buying a home in one of the surrounding cities and not being in just the city of Temecula, which is the most expensive in our little area here. That's really going to tie us into the biggest con, number 4. So because the area is so expensive, it's a really hard area for first-time homebuyers to come in and buy a home, right? So when first-time home buyer, usually it's a younger, you know, couple or family or person, right, that's saving up to buy their first home, and when your first home that you go to buy and the average home is $750,000, that's a really hard point, you know, jumping in, breaking in point, right? Usually the biggest thing for buying a home is being able to save up the down payment. That's the hardest first step, right? And saving up the down payment to buy a $750,000 home is a heck of a lot harder than it is to save up the down payment to buy a $450,000 home, right? And so it could be a matter of years difference for some people to be able to save up the down. So because of that, we don't have a ton of first-time buyers that buy homes here just in the city of Temecula. So a lot of people will do, kind of like I mentioned a minute ago, is they will buy homes or condos or whatnot in some of the surrounding areas, and then will step up into a home in Temecula if that's what they want to do. So there's cities of Murrieta, Menifee, Wildomar, Lake Elsinore, Winchester, that are right here in Hemet, that are right here in the surrounding area, that are a little more expensive, easier to get into as a first-time home buyer. You can maybe live there for a couple of years, pay down the mortgage, your property value goes up over time, sell that, and then kind of make that jump for the second or third home into the Temecula area. So that's a big thing. You know, first-time home buyers sometimes have a hard time actually affording to live here in the city. All right, and then the last biggest con that I want to go over, so number 5, is just the cookie cutter tract homes that are here in the city of Temecula. So most of that's because of how and when the city was built. So again, most homes were built anywhere from the mid-90s to 2010-ish, right? And with the way the city was built at that time is big mass developers and builders came in, bought up 100 acres, subdivided that acreage into smaller lots to be able to build houses, and they built 200, 500, 1,000, 2,500 homes at once in a massive planned community, right, in tract homes. So when that happens, those tend to be stucco homes, so wood framed homes with stucco on the outside, that all kind of tend to blend together. So a lot of people, especially if they're from other areas, especially from East Coast, when they come to town, is they feel like there's just so many stucco boxes here, right? As I'm driving through, it all just kind of looks the same. For me, I've lived here a long time. It's not like a deal breaker for me, but I can see their point for sure. Where there's a lot of shades of brown, right? There's a lot of different stucco boxes, maybe a little bit different shades and maybe a little bit different shapes, but all very, very, very similar. So if that's a big thing for you, that's something to definitely consider when you're moving to a newer suburb like this. If that is a big trigger point, there are some handful select neighborhoods in the area that don't have that feel. They've kind of specifically maybe have a little more character or different roof lines or different styles or facades to the outsides of the houses to not give you that feeling. But even then, that's probably going to be limited to that specific neighborhood and not reflective to the overall city, which is going to be a little, it's kind of similar, right? From one side of town to the other. So that's just something to know anytime you're moving to a newer suburb like the city of Temecula. That's definitely a complaint that I hear from people for sure. So that's it. That's my list. So those are the five biggest pros, 5 biggest cons. Hopefully it gives you guys good information on what it's like to actually live here. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. You can call, text, email. Definitely would love to hear from you guys and hopefully talk to you soon. Thanks.